They really liked it, particularly the flip cameras, because they are so little and they're not intimidating in any way. So you didn't get any of this kind of like, oh no, shame, miss, shame, don't film me. So because they're like little mobile phones and they're so easy to use, the kids have really enjoyed them. We did go and have a look at the different types of documentary. We looked at the different techniques used in documentaries. I don't know if we spoon-fed them a little bit too much, so that when they started thinking about their documentaries, you know, they were like, well, it has to have a voiceover and it has to have B-roll and, you know, there has to be cutaways. So I kind of stepped back from that a little bit and kind of said, you know, it can be more ethnographic and it does, you're not proving anything. But they've done some wonderful things. I mean, they was really thinking about what is it like to be British, what have we got that's really good. So I saw a little clip the other day where they'd filmed each other and they'd pretended to hurt themselves. So then they got up and said, oh, well, it's all right because I'm British and we've got the NHS. So things like that, you know. So they've been really imaginative about doing it, and even kind of the way that they've filmed the introduction, so that they had, at one point, you know, there were kids standing, jumping up and down on kind of tables and stuff, so, you know, introducing each other. And so they've really loved it and they've been very, very creative about it. So I think it's really worked very, very well. It's very hard not to be a teacher sometimes. So my original thing was like, right, they've got to know about the European Union. How am I going to teach that? And it's like, well, actually, I'm not going to teach it. I'm going to let them find out and just tell them, give them a list of things that they need to research. And then I did the teachy bit with, you know, sort of, you know, well, what kind of documentary is it? Is it participatory or whatever? So then I pulled back quite a lot. But then I still had to say, well, this is the ethnographic process, so, you know, don't come up, or don't look for the reason, you know, to prove your argument. There doesn't have to be an argument. So that bit, I think we all found a little bit difficult, but they've gone back to doing it as well. So, but I think that's been because I've been a lot more, I've made myself a lot more hands-off. It's like, look, just do it.
With regards to the camera work, I was quite surprised. They're all really, really confident and all wanted ownership of you know, recording what people thought on the camera. They all wanted to be on the camera. They all practiced their interviews with each other and then with members of staff, and they all went around. And that was really nice to see because it was showing them as mature, they're responsible, and they looked after the equipment, and they did it in a very confident manner, which if they hadn't, and if they'd been quite shy and scared, then obviously that would have had a negative impact upon, you know, trying to ascertain what they were thinking about identity. So that was a really positive part about it in those filming stages. And then with the third phase that we're in now, with regards to making the documentary, where they're around the computers and they're trying to, well, they've uploaded their flip camera work and they're beginning to edit. And then there becomes the other obstacle with regards to them trying to create something that's snazzy, that's polished, that's you know, got their cool music on, and it's got the kind of the images and people discussing as almost a background to what they're trying to present. And it's been difficult for them to perceive a documentary as anything but one which has got the music, got the subtitles, got the title pages and all the rest of it. And it's moving away from that that's now becoming more of a challenge in this phase of the making.
So is there a kind of tension between the ethnographic methodology and what they kind of want to produce, because they've seen documentaries on television? And
yeah, absolutely. And I think perhaps it is, I wonder if they are a low ability group, and so you're talking about ethnographic documentary, which is quite rare anyway. And the only real comparison is, well, you know, imagine if you just had data or you just had numbers, it's just presenting that without any kind of, without you analysing it too much, breaking it down. It's a difficult comparison for them to make because neither is tangible. Yeah. So they've got to kind of create one and see one, and then even then it's so far removed from what they understand it to be that they find it quite difficult. And I think perhaps with subjects, you do judge them a little bit on their presentation skills, which they've linked with this, you know, making it sound good, making it look good. So I think to lose that, they think, oh, it was not going to be very good if it happens. But actually, that's what you want.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah. And in terms of their engagement, do you feel that there's a kind of comparison to be made between, you know, making what we call a social documentary, but making a documentary to demonstrate your learning around a theme, compared to kind of other, perhaps more conventional modes of learning, you know, which is writing an essay, giving a presentation. How does it feel for you in terms of their levels of engagement compared to some of the alternatives?
I think really good. I mean, I think if you were to compare this to if you did, let's say, a comprehension task and you're looking at identity and you did that comparison, then they'd got poor literacy skills, so they would have struggled to extrapolate the information as it was anyway. And then that's not really how they understand it. For this group in particular, they understand it much more through discussion and exploring a little bit more about the topic. So then the other way of doing it would have been maybe a research project using computer work as opposed to this creating a documentary. And I still think the documentary has been more successful because they're so confident with the flip cameras and they've really engaged with interviewing and they've really found that's completely their ownership because they've got no PowerPoint to put in the information. You know, they've created it with the flip cameras and the interviews and the questions, the direction they want to take it. And I think they actually relish in that ownership of it much more.
And why was it fun?
Because we get to do what we wanted when we wanted to do it. We weren't really stressed about it until the end.
Why was it stressful at the end?
Because we'd done about half of it, and then we had a month of panic because we didn't know really how long it would take.
It was fun. We all worked in a group and we learned from each other. So yeah.
It's interesting then doing other work in maths and other lessons around the school.
Can you say why?
Because it's more interactive and you work in teamwork and help each other out with the project.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I never had any technical skills before that because I was never really good at editing. But the rest of the group usually done most of the editing because they were more better at it than me.
Efficient.
Yeah, efficient.
Advanced.
And were they already skilled in editing without being taught it in school?
Yeah, because they went media club, and whereas I didn't. So
I've known how to edit a little bit, but I've just kind of saw the different things. I thought that looked interesting, and I put it into the documentary.
Right. So editing was something you'd already done, and you didn't need a tremendous amount of teaching.
No.
What about other people? Were there other people who needed more support?
Yeah, some people needed help from other teams to help them know how to edit voiceovers and things.
Okay, but from other teams of students?
Yeah.
All right, interesting, okay.
So instead of just following what the teacher says, we kind of got to expand on that and teach ourselves almost.
I knew how to film and take pictures, but I just didn't know the editing side, so I got to learn the editing side, but I could film and learn different shots through Media Club.
Okay, so Media Club is in school?
Yeah.
So it helped you that you were in that club outside of citizenship lessons?
Yeah. I didn't really enjoy the documentary. I found it a little bit just boring, and so that's why that's it really.
Can you say a little bit more about why you didn't enjoy
because
it? What was boring
I just
about
didn't enjoy going out filming myself about European. I just didn't enjoy it. It's boring, really, really boring.
Did you use the word ethnographic at all during the process? Well, what kind of documentary were you making, and how was a different kind of documentary to ones you might see on television?
Is it cultural in a way? Because obviously ethnicity is where you're from, and the ethnographical
background.
Yeah, because showing it that it's Birmingham's full of different cultures and everything, and a local area can be full of different cultures also.
Because when we talk about ethnographic documentary, what we actually mean is that you try to represent everybody's points of view without selecting them or without being biased in terms of your own point of view. So how did that feel when you were editing? Presumably you had lots and lots of stuff and lots of people. So did you have to, was it difficult to try to get everybody's views across in the final edited version or not?
Well, we all agreed. Truthfully, we all pretty much agreed on quite a lot of the views, apart from maybe 1 or 2 disagreements with the views.
What were they, the 1 or 2 disagreements? Can you remember?
I didn't really believe that Chippy was classically British. World's tallest lady used to live here.
The world's tallest lady usually. So you learnt that. Okay. Anything else about the community and their views on identity in Europe and those kinds of things?
We learnt like that it's not just a community. It's more of like it's like not just a place where nobody gets along. Everyone gets along in a different way, like through clubs and it's not just over the internet. It's like through clubs and like the sailing club and youth clubs and things like that, not just through the internet.
Okay, so there's quite a lot of community cohesion locally. What do you think, and I haven't seen the films yet, but when we see the films and we show the films in Europe, what kind of idea do you think the audience will get about this community in relation to Europe? How European do you think this local area will seem from your documentaries?
Nobody really uses like proper English around here because it's like Birmingham, so we've got quite a bummy accent compared to other parts of England, so people might not think in our area that we're actually European because we don't speak as the other European countries and we don't have the same like currency and things like that.
Right. So do you think we see ourselves as less European?
Yeah.
Okay. And were there examples in the films of people saying that?
Yeah, like Beth said that we don't use euros, we use pounds.
Yeah. Okay.
The military stuff and technology and stuff like that will be taken over in 100 years instead of just keeping all of this old buildings that we have and schools. We kind of just upgrade to newer technology and military stuff, etc.
Okay. So new technological developments, military developments. What other kinds of things were people saying in the films about the future?
Some people said about loads of housing estates for people that are homeless and like places.
Okay.
I thought there'd be a lot less grassland because of everyone like building new things here.
Okay.
So there'd be a lot less.
Okay, so we've got a sense that there's going to be more people, more buildings, less grass, less trees. So environmental problems in the future, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
No oxygen.
Final question. So this idea we had of you making we call it ethnographic documentary, social documentary, whatever you want to call it. You did that instead of, say, writing an essay or doing a presentation. So you're learning about citizenship and identity, but you're making a film instead of another way of being assessed. Do you think it could work in other subjects in the school? And if so, which subjects and what kinds of things?
I think it would help ICT because we like using computers and films, and, cameras and everything. And it would probably help with drama as well because we're speaking to a camera and a script.
Yeah. So those kinds of technical and performance skills. Yeah. What about, say you did it in something like history, like instead of writing an essay about a historical topic, you make a documentary about it. Would that work?
Yeah.
Because
you look into the background and history of a certain place, and you could do it with anywhere really within Europe. So you just got to have a topic really. So.
Is there any subjects where you think it wouldn't work to make a documentary?
Yes.
Why not?
Because when you're doing a video about maths, it's all numbers. You don't really have pictures of people, so it'd be very hard. You'd have to do more of an animation, perhaps, like how algebra works.
Okay.
And that wouldn't be the funnest thing to do.
Probably like maths because it's got nothing to do with the world and stuff.
It's gone really well. I think they've really enjoyed it, and I think they've learnt a lot, and it's been surprising how much terminology they've remembered, how many techniques they've remembered, and they all got really into the editing. They really liked that bit, and I think once they started realising that they could put a bit of music on there and some text on there, and once they got quite familiar with the technology, I think they started flying then. I think the tricky thing was to get them all comfortable and confident with the technology, which isn't hugely techy, but it's probably more than they've been used to.
In terms of their learning in the context of the citizenship curriculum, how successful has it been compared to more maybe traditional ways of teaching and learning?
Well, Megan assured me this morning that she now knows where Portugal was, and that Portugal wasn't a county in England, which is great. So, yeah, I think it's been really good actually. I think they've really, and the element of independent research has worked really, really well, because I just gave them some pointers and pointed them along their way, so it's been kind of a, yeah, they've done it themselves really. I think it's been great. Yeah, sometimes I think they didn't see their documentary in terms of their audience, they saw it in terms of like, oh yeah, I know where that is. So when I was watching it back with them, I kind of had to say, well, is your audience going to know where that is? You know, you've got a lovely picture of a post box there, but unless you inform your audience a little bit more, they're not going to know why you've got a post box there and what that's got to do with being European or being British, etc. So I think it was, again the technical side of it and seeing it as an audience rather than them, oh, I know why that post box is there. Well, you've got to explain it. But then, was I being too sort of prescriptive? Do you know what I mean? So I think that was the thing that was the really tricky one, getting them to think in terms of explaining everything. So.
And did you witness any kind of particular examples of like critical thinking arising from the process of making the documentary compared to other ways of learning?
Yeah, generally, and I think some kids really embraced it. For example, there's one film where we were talking about what it means to be European, what it means to be British, and one group went off and interviewed their grandparents, you know, and that was quite a charming little section of their film, really. So having those processes, and I did have to keep linking them back, saying, right, okay, it's not just a film about Bartley Green, the European thing. And another group went over and said, well, you know, and went and stood next to a building site and said, well, look at how communities change. So I think that worked really well, actually. I think they understood and found it quite easy to talk about their area. And there are a few little things that they picked up about the area. For example, there's a very old little library up there which has been around since 1905. So they were quite good at picking up on that. Whether they linked it into how European we are, I'm not sure. I think the videos come across as very British, not necessarily European. There's one that's got, oh, here's some European flags, but goes up, and great, brilliant.
And what vision of the future do we get from the films? Because obviously the focus was on how things might change in the next 100 years. But what, according to these documentaries, what will change? How does the future look?
Not much different, apparently, according to the kids. Yeah. There's one film where they do say, you know, just, you know, look at how things changed in front of the building site, which I thought was very good. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure. They do link it in a bit, sort of, you know, will the reservoir still be here, or will it be a housing estate? But I don't know if they really, really thought about that. 100 years to a teenager, it's what does that mean? Yeah. You know, they have trouble thinking 20 years ahead at this age. So, yeah, I think that was a bit of a stretch for them, maybe. I did kind of keep pushing them towards that, but I don't know if they particularly picked up on that, to be perfectly honest.